welcome back to my channel. For the shelf elf female outfit, you're going to need a pair of scissors, a darning needle. I'm using a size 4.5 crochet hook. I'm also using Bernat Premium, Yarn Inspirations Bernat Premium, just plain white. And I'm also using Yarn Inspirations Bernat Premium, and this one is called Red Sparkle. I really love this one. I also got it in black, but I couldn't find it in green. So that's what you're going to need. So stay tuned and we'll get started. So to start with, we're going to be starting with the white, and we're going to be working on the bodice of the dress. Sorry. We're going to be working on the bodice of the dress. So start by chaining 9. Four, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And now you're going to work back a single crochet all the way back. So skip the first chain, and we're just going to work into this one here and just do a single crochet all the way back. So when you're done, you should have 8 single crochet. Okay, so once you're back at the beginning and you have your 8, you're going to chain 1 and then turn your work. And now what we're going to be doing in order to get this kind of pleated look, you're just going to be working into the back stitches only. So you're going to do single crochets into the back stitches only. So you just find that little stitch right there and just work into just that. And then you're going to do that all the way across. So you're just working into the back stitch only for 8 stitches. And that's going to create a nice little pleated look for the top of the dress. And also it makes it a little bit stretchy. This dress does fit tight. I purposely did it that way. If you want it a little bit looser, you can add an extra row at the end. But I wanted it tight just so I could pose her and such for my daughter and not have to worry about her dress falling off or getting in the way. So if it's a little bit snug, but that's okay. Okay, so you're gonna do this. Oh my goodness, I'm having some trouble with this one. Okay, last one. Just work into this little back stitch. That one can be a little bit hard to find. Make sure you're keeping count. You don't want to go over, because if you start going 9 into this end, you're going to have a really bumpy edge on this. Then chain 1, turn your work, and now you're going to repeat that 14 times. So you're going to work back stitch only for another 14 rows, or sorry, 13 rows. So you should have 14 rows in total of back stitch only. If you would like the dress to fit a little bit looser, it does fit like this. It just fits a little snug. So if you'd like it a little bit looser, then you go ahead and do 15, but I'm going to stop at 14 and then I will meet you back here. Okay, so I finished my 14. Now I'm just going to fold it over, and then I'm going to slip stitch back into that first initial chain of our chain. So you're going to slip stitch into that. Oops. Pull it right through. And now turn your work over like so. So now this is actually your back side that's facing you. And what we're going to do is I want to attach these two sides together, but I'd like to do it as seamless as possible. So what I've done is on this first side here, I'm working in just right into the stitch. So Just go right into the stitch. But then on the second side here, you're just going to work into the back loop only, okay? And then just pull through. Don't do a single crochet here. We're just doing a little slip stitch. And you're going to continue that all the way through to the other side. Okay, so I'm just going to work into this last one here. And then this one might be a little bit tricky to find the back stitch here. It's just right underneath this little knot looking in there. There's a little stitch hiding there. There you go. So once you've attached it all, see, it just kind of looks like another pleat. It's hardly noticeable. So once you've done that, you're going to chain 2. I'm going to go ahead and chain 2 here, and then I want to do 14 half double crochets all the way around. There aren't actual stitches here. You're working into the sides of a stitch, so it could be a little tricky. You might have to do it more than once to get it correct, but you're just gonna kind of wing it and try to space out your stitches evenly all the way across. For anyone who's not familiar with half double crochet, it's like a double crochet. So you wrap the yarn around your hook, insert your hook, pull through, and then instead of pulling through 2, you're just going to pull through all 3 loops on your hook, and then just repeat that all the way around. So continue that around until you get to 14, and I will meet you back at the beginning. Okay, so I've got my 14 stitches. Now it's going to look like you have a large gap here. Don't worry, that's going to disappear. As soon as you ignore this chain here, you're going to work into the very top of your first of the 14 half double crochets. So you're just going to work into the very top of that stitch and do a slip stitch if I can get in there. And then just do a slip stitch. Pull it all really tight, and that's it. So that is your first round of the actual skirt portion. So once you have your 14 half double crochet, you're going to go ahead and chain 2. And then into this very first stitch, which is the bottom of this first chain 2, you're going to put 2 more half double crochet into that stitch. Oh, if I can get in there, it's a little tight in there. Okay. And then in each stitch for the rest of the row, you're just going to put 3 half double crochets, and that's in each stitch all the way around. So that's a bit of an extreme as far as doing increases go, but we really want this to flare out a lot. So in order to do that, we need to put 3 stitches in each, and then it looks really cute. So continue that all the way around, 3 half double crochets in each stitch all the way around. So I believe in the end you should have 42 stitches, and then meet me back here at the beginning. So once I have my 42 stitches and I come back around to the beginning, I'm going to finish this off, but first of all, I'm going to add an additional half double crochet into this row. So the reason for that is because the very next row that we're going to be working on, the next 4 rows actually, are the star stitch, and for the star stitch I need multiples of 2 plus 1. So I have 42, which is a multiple of 2, so I need an additional half double crochet. So I'm just going to add one into the same space that your initial chain 1 is. Sorry, your initial chain 2 is. So we're just going to add a half double crochet into that space. And then you're just going to slip stitch into the very top of that chain. Okay, so you have a very funny looking tubal thing here, but I promise you it will look like a skirt later on. So now this next stitch that we're doing can be a little bit complicated. Just the very beginning is complicated, but if this is too difficult for you, you can just continue on doing half double crochets until you have it at the length that you want it, or you can attempt to do the star stitch here. We're going to be doing 2 rows of star stitches, but each row consists of 2 rows to make that stitch. I don't know if that made any sense. So I'm going to be counting the rows now. I'm going to be starting back at 1. So this will be row 1 of the first star stitch. Okay, and then row 2 will complete the first row of star stitches, and then rows 3 and 4 will do another row of star stitches. You need 2 rows to complete the stitch, that's why. So you're going to start by chaining 2. So 1 and 2, and then what we're going to be doing is working into the second chain from the hook there, so the very bottom here. You're just going to be working into that little front of the chain there, just the front loop only. Okay, so pull your yarn through and you should have 2 loops on your hook. Okay, keep those there. Now this part can get a little bit fiddly, so just bear with me here. So now what you're going to do is now we're going to be working into the back loop of that same loop. Okay, so we've worked into the front, so you got to kind of turn it a little bit and you can just see the back loop there. This is really fiddly to start with, but I promise you it gets easier with practice. So now you're pulling through just that back loop, and you should have now 3 loops on your hook. Okay, so once you have 3 loops on your hook, now you're going to be working into, if I can get it to focus, the very bottom of that chain. Okay, so again, you're going to insert your hook, pull a loop through. So you should have 4 loops on your hook. That was the most complicated part. If you've gotten through that, then the rest is a breeze. Okay, so now into the very next stitch, you're going to insert your hook, pull up a loop. So you have 5 loops on your hook, and then into the next stitch, insert your hook, pull up a loop till you have 6 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through all 6 loops, and those first ones might be a little fiddly to get through. You just got to kind of work it. It might be a bit stubborn. You might have to go 1 or 2 loops at a time for this first one. So once you have your stitch through, yarn over, and you're just going to chain 1 to close that up, and that is your first shell stitch, first half of your first shell stitch. Okay, so now we're going to be working down the side of this stitch and then into the row. Okay, so first you're going to be working into the eye of the star stitch, so into this little circle here at the top, the chain that's used to close it. You're going to be working into there, draw up a loop. Then you're going to be working into the side of this stitch, so that would be the very last stitch in the star stitch. So you're going to be working into that. Make sure you get both loops on your hook. Okay, so now you have 3 loops on your hook. Now you're going to be working into the very bottom stitch, which is the last stitch that you worked your star stitch into. So you're going to be working into that one for 4 loops on your hook. Now you're going to be working into the next stitch in the row. Oops. 5 loops on your hook and 1 more stitch. So 2 stitches of that row. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, yarn over, and pull through all 6 loops on your hook. Yarn over, chain 1, and that closes the star stitch. Okay, again, one more time, working into that top eye here. Draw a loop. It helps to pull your yarn down to the bottom of your hook. It just helps to loosen up that eye. It makes it a little easier to work into there. And then you're going to be working into the side here of that stitch. Draw up a loop, then into the bottom of that star stitch, draw up a loop, then into the next stitch of that row, and one more stitch into that row. So you have 6 loops on your hook, yarn over, and draw through all 6, yarn over, chain 1 to create the eye, and there you have a star stitch. So that makes a pretty little burst. I wanted this because I do the red star later, and it looks really good coming out of these star stitches, so that's why I chose to do this. But again, if this is too complicated, just go ahead and do the next 3 or 4 rows to whatever length you like as a half double crochet or a double crochet, and that's fine as well. So continue this all the way around, and I will meet you back right here. Okay, so once you finish your first row of the first half of your star stitch, once you finish your last star, just yarn over and then into this little loop here at the bottom, the stitch here at the bottom, which is where you placed your last stitch of your star stitch. Just do a half double crochet into that space. And that will finish up that row. So now in order to do the star stitch, you actually have to work back this way. Okay, so you're going to be working back in the opposite direction. You can't just go around in circles, but I don't want to do that and leave this open, because otherwise in the end I'm going to end up with a big gap there. So just into the very top of this chain, do a slip stitch in there just to close it all up nice and tight. And then chain 1, and then turn your work. And now we're going to be working in the opposite direction, going back the other way. Okay, so in the bottom of this chain, the first thing we're going to do right here in the bottom is you're going to work in a single crochet into that stitch. And then find your first, or what would have been your last eye of your star stitch, and insert another single crochet into that space there. So what we've done is we just did 2 single crochets that helped us to close up all of the ending gap there between the last star and your half double crochet. So now for the balance, for the remainder of this row, all you're going to be doing is doing single crochets into the eye of each one of your stars, 2 single crochets into each eye of each star, all the way around back to the beginning. So, oops. So 2 single crochets in each star all the way back around. So it's very easy from here. And then meet me back at the end of this row, and I will show you how to finish off this row. So once you've completed your single crochets in all of your eyes all the way around, you're just going to go back into that very first slip stitch that we did and do another slip stitch into there to finish off the round, and that's it. This round is now complete. Okay, so now go ahead and turn your work. We're going to be working on the front again, working back this way to do round 1 of our second row of stars. Well, it's backwards here. There we go. Okay, so now you're going to go ahead and chain 2, and now we're going to be doing that wonky working into this chain again. So what you're going to do again one more time is you're going to work into the front of this bottom chain, second chain from the hook, pull up a loop, and then turn it, work into the back of that same chain, yarn over, draw up a loop. So you should have 3 loops on your hook, Then you're going to work into the very bottom of that stitch, of that chain, sorry. So that will have 4 loops on your hook. Then you're going to work into the next stitch over for 5 loops on your hook. Next stitch over for 6 loops on your hook, and pull through all 6. Yarn over, create the eye, and that is your first star. Insert into the eye, pull through, drop a loop, insert into the side of that stitch. Oops. Yarn over, drop a loop, then into the bottom of that first star stitch, drop a loop, and then into the next 2 stitches. You're going to drop a loop, so you should have 6 loops on the hook in total. Yarn over, pull through all 6, yarn over, create the eye, and then continue. So you're going to finish that. You're going to continue that all the way around. You're going to repeat this row, or finish this row, and then repeat row 2 of the star stitch, and meet me back here when you've completed 2 complete rows of the star stitch. So once you have come to the end of your 4th row of your 2 rounds of star stitches, I just want to show you that you have a little eye that's kind of hidden. You can see it if you flip your work over on the other side. You can see it right there. So you want to make sure that you get into that eye. Don't forget that one. It kind of looks like it doesn't belong there. So make sure you're getting into that, or you won't get your 42 stitches, which is what we need for the next round. So you do your 2 into there, and it kind of makes it look a little bunched up. And now you are slip stitching into the top of the next stitch, and that is it. So now our row of star stitches, our rows of star stitches are complete. So at the risk of confusing everybody, that was the end of row 6. So rows 1 and 2 were both half double crochet, and then we had 4 rows of the star stitch, two rows per round. And now we're going to beginning round 7. But in order to do that, we're going to color change. So just give your wool a little snip there, and oops, give it a good pull, nice little tug, and there you go. So that is the first portion of the dress done. So again, if you want to do half double crochets or double crochets for the bottom part of the skirt, that's fine. Just in each one of these little stars, what I did was I put the little burst, the little starburst right out of those stars. So that's why I chose to use a star stitch, but you don't have to do that again if it's a little too complicated. So for the next row, I'm going to be switching from white and using the red sparkle. So for this row, you can attach anywhere. I want to attach as close to my ending here as I can, just because I want to sew in that stitch, or sew in that extra wool there. So you can attach however you prefer to attach when you're doing a color change. This is just my method. I think I say that in just about every video. So insert your hook anywhere you want on your project. Then I go into the little loop here. I guess it would help if I had the right end. Then you're just going to pull that through, secure it on the back side, and then I'm going to chain 1. Okay, so once you're secure, you've secured your color, you're going to chain up 1 more. I've already chained 1 to secure my color, so that's technically a chain 2 that's there. And now into that same space, I'm going to insert 2 more double crochets. Then I'm going to skip the next stitch, and into the following stitch I'm going to just do a slip stitch into that stitch. Okay, and I'm going to skip the next stitch into the following stitch. I'm going to do 3 double crochets, and skip the next stitch, and then into the following stitch. I'm going to, it's very tight there, that's where we finished off the last row, so I'm just going to do a slip stitch into there, skip a stitch, into the following stitch, 3 double crochets. So you're going to continue that all the way around. Oops. Back to the beginning, and I will meet you back here when you're done. So if you come to the last few stitches of your shell stitches and you realize that this is not going to work out, that's okay. I didn't do a count at the beginning to make sure I had my 42 stitches, so I've obviously messed up somewhere. If you know where, leave it in the comments for me. But instead of skipping a stitch to do my next shell stitch right there, I'm just going to go ahead and do it into the next space, and it's really not going to make that big of a difference. So just be careful not to work into that slip stitch there. So I'll do a little shell stitch. These are mini shell stitches. I'm not sure if I mentioned that or not. And then we're going to work right into the very next stitch is where we're going to place our slip stitch. So only go halfway on the slip stitch. Don't quite pull into here yet. Grab the very top of that very first, oops, grab the very top of this very first shell stitch, and then you're going to pull all of that through at the same time. There. So you end up with a little extra, one extra mini, but you can see you can hardly even tell. Okay. Okay, so on to round 8. So this is the last round of the dress. So you're going to chain 2, so chain 1 and then chain 2, and then into this very same space you're going to put 4 double crochets. So that's 1, 2, 3, and 4. So this is going to seem very crowded, but it's supposed to. This round of shell stitches that I'm doing now is it gathers up the whole bottom and makes it really scrunchy and billowy looking. So so that's why. So you have 4 double crochets plus your initial chain stitch for your initial chain 2 for a total of 5 double crochets. And now you're going to be working into the top of that mini shell stitch. So there's 3 stitches along the top. You're working into the middle one. You're just going to do a slip knot in a slip stitch in there. So just do your slip stitch, and then you come into this little space here in the bottom of this slip stitch, and you're going to be doing 5 more double crochets. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then in the top of your next shell, going to be putting a slip stitch just to pull that shell down. And then again into the bottom of the next slip stitch, you're going to be putting 5 double crochet. So repeat that all the way around until you get back to the beginning, and I will show you how to finish. So once you finish your last large shell, you're just going to slip stitch into the top of that mini shell from the last row, and then slip stitch into the top of that chain 3 and pull it all down together. And that's it. Do your final slip knot. Cut your wool. Sorry, I got distracted. I'm just watching a tractor drive by. And that's it. So I pull through. So tie off all your loose ends. And that is your dress almost complete. So the last part that we have to do is just these little bursts, these little, I guess, starbursts you could call them. So that's the last thing that we're going to do, and then your dress is done. So in order to do that, pull off, oh, sorry, I keep banging the camera. Pull off, oh, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 feet, maybe 3 feet of wool, and just give it a snip. And then you're just going to tie several knots into the end of this. You want quite a few knots because you don't want to pull it through. So we're going to put probably, I don't know, 4, maybe 5 knots in here. It doesn't matter because you're not going to be looking inside the dress, so it doesn't matter if it leaves a little knot at the end. And then on the opposite end, you're just going to insert your wool into your darning needle. Now you can do this after you've sewn in all your ends. I usually would wait and sew in all my ends first before doing this part, just so they stay out of your way, but that's okay. So what I did, first of all, was I want to find the front of my dress. So this is the seam at the back right here. So the front of my dress is going to be opposite that seam. So this is the front of the dress. And then I wanted to find the little star stitch. So here's my 2 rows of star stitches, and I wanted the one in the center at the front. Okay. So what you're going to do is insert your hook into the or not your hook, your darning needle into the very center of that first starburst. And then you can make this as large as you want or as small as you want. That's entirely up to you. I pull my wool up just to gauge it, so because I want it perfectly straight up and down. And then I'm just going to insert my needle. I keep saying hook. And then pull it down. There. Okay, now I'm going to come back up through that very same initial hole that I came through the first time. I want to be as center as I can in there. And I'm going to pull it through, and then I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom, and I want it to be as even as possible. So I want the stitches to be about the same length. So I'm going to pull that through on the bottom. Okay, then we're going to come back up through that center again. We're just going to keep coming back through that center. And then for the side one, I usually go a little bit beyond. This is the next eye hole of a star, so I go just a little bit beyond there. It's always better to, if you go through the center of a piece of thread or a piece of wool, it just makes it blend better if you go through the center rather than if you go in the center of a stitch somewhere, because then you often lose the end of this. It'll just kind of disappear into the wool. Okay, so we're going to repeat that on this side. Again, here's the eye, so I go just a little on the other side of that eye, pull it through. We're going to come back up through the center again. Now we're going to try to find, we don't want this one to be quite as long, so I'm going to try to find the center here of these two, and then that's where you're going to insert your needle. It's right there in the center, as close to the center as you can get. So last one, right in the center, and there you go. So that's your little starburst. And then on the back, you have this nice little mess back here. So you can, I wouldn't bother attaching this yet because you're going to be doing more starbursts all the way around. So once you get that far, what I did was I went over, so here is an eye hole here. I just went just a little bit beyond that, and then I worked, and then here's the other eye hole, so 3 eye holes over. So you got 1 here, then there's 2, then 3, so the 4th one. So every 4th one, I did a little starburst in it, and I ended up with 6 at the end, and they got a little, this one's a little not so great. But that's it. So that is the dress finished. Sew in your ends, and this is what you should end up with. I'm going to end this video here because it turned out a little bit lengthier than I had hoped it would be. And so I will do the scarf and the hat in another video in the next day or two. So if you like this video, please like and subscribe. And yeah, thank you very much for watching. See you next time.